Hi, welcome to this STAIR Tailored. My name is Sarah Powell and I work at the University of Texas at Austin. And today we're solving one-step equations that have a subtraction operator symbol. And by that, I mean we're focused on problems that have a minus sign in them. And we're going to use materials, I say cups and counters, but we're going to use some other materials that you can just find in your classroom. So it's pretty easy to show students how to solve these different types of equations, and you don't have to buy a lot of things. You probably already have some of these resources at your fingertips. So today we're going to solve these two problems, x minus 3 equals 2 and 5 equals x minus 2. So I'm going to move over to my document camera to show you what this might look like. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to solve these problems today. X minus 3 equals 2 is the first problem we're going to solve. So I'm going to go ahead and get this set up. I could use a cup to represent my variable. Today I'm just going to use a plate because it's flat and easy to see. And notice how I wrote an x on this plate, and I only have one x, so I'll just bring in one plate or one cup to use. Now we need to subtract 3, and if I use my two color counters, that means I'm going to have 3 negative on this side, and then on the other side I have 2 positive. Now, one of the questions that you might have is like, well, wait a minute, why do you have 3 reds or 3 negatives out there? Because you're actually subtracting positive 3. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a side story to tell you why this works. And this is an important thing to explain to students. So here, let's just imagine I've got my x set up, and we need to subtract 3. That 3 is positive because there's no negative symbol directly preceding the 3. So to be able to subtract 3, I need to take away 3 yellow counters. The yellow counters represent our positive integers, but we don't have 3 yellow counters to take away. So we can use 0 pairs, so I'll bring in 1 0 pair, still don't have 3 positive to take away. I'll bring in another 0 pair, still don't have 3 positive that I can take away, and I'll bring in another 0 pair. Now we get to the point where I can take away 3, so I'll take those away, 1, 2, 3, and what I have remaining are these 3 negatives, which is how we can kind of interpret this problem here. So now back to our original story, x minus 3 equals 2. Now in algebra, we want to isolate this variable. So that means I want to isolate this x, or this plate, and I'm going to remove the constant, and we can do that by using 0 pairs. I want to create 0 on this side. So I'm going to bring in 3 yellow counters to create then 3 0 pairs, so this side equals 0. But remember, whatever we do to one side of the equal sign, we have to do to the other. So if I brought in 3 positive on this side of the equal sign, I also have to do that to that side of the equal sign. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to remove my 0 pairs. Each of those equals 0. And so then we have x equals 5. So we solved this problem, x equals 5, and if I plug that back in, 5 minus 3 does equal 2. I'm going to go ahead and remove all of my manipulatives, and we're going to solve this next problem. This time I'm going to set up 5, so I'll go ahead and get out 5 yellow counters here, equals, and I'll just use a plain old Post-it note with an x written on it, x minus 2. Now last time I showed you what it means to end up having minus 2 and why those are represented in red. I'm not going to do it this time, but that would be a helpful thing to show students if they need to review that process again. I now need to isolate this variable. I isolate the variable by removing the constant, bringing this side of the constant to 0. And I can do that by creating 2 0 pairs, but remember, whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, we also have to do to the other side of the equal sign. Now I remove my 0 pairs, so I see that x is 7. And when I plug that in, 5 does equal 7 minus 2. So x does equal 7. Yay, we solved that problem correctly. So those were some examples of how we can solve some simple one-step equations with just materials in the classroom. You could have used cups and counters. We use the 2 color counters. You could also use Post-it notes and other things that are just laying around, and you can bring them in to do lots of cool things in math, such as solving equations.